All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 68 of Pozios Picks. In this episode, we got a little collab episode going. I'm very excited for it. We're doing an NBA mock draft, NBA draft, complete breakdown, picks, analysis, all that good stuff. To help me out today, I've got Joey, I've got Max from their own podcast, Zero on the Clock. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me on
Yeah,
your
thank you
show.
for
Thank
having
you for
us.
coming on
Yeah, thank you
mine.
for having us over.
I've been looking forward to this for forever. The draft has been all the topics and all the trades and the odds have been going crazy the past few days. So I know we're gonna have a lot to talk about. We're just gonna dive right into it. Just to start, we're gonna kind of just go prospect by prospect, kind of pick by pick, and then see where we go from there. So the number one prospect currently in terms of odds. My personal number one prospect in the draft is Jabari Smith. His odds to go number one are currently minus 210, according to FanDuel. I just think Jabari's the best player in this draft. I think he has the highest ceiling in this draft. I mean, he can score at all three levels easily. He's going to be a 7-footer by the time he stops growing. There's obviously a lot of concerns with him just in terms of like how he defended this year at Auburn and things like that. But I'm curious to see how you guys feel about Jabari.
Yeah, no. So I'll end up going next. I'm Joey, by the way, from Zero on the Clock. And for this pick, I'm going to also go Jabari number one. I think from what I've heard, the Magic really, really like Jabari, and I do as well. I think he should go number one, especially because he would fit perfectly on the Magic. He's a guy that's, 6'10". He's got an extremely long wingspan, so that can help him a lot on the defensive end. He wasn't a great defender in college, but he definitely has the ability to become an even better defender and a really good defender in the NBA, especially if he can put on weight and, get in the gym and get that hard work and being the number one pick. I know he's going to have that hard work, and, I definitely think Jabari is going to be the one to go number one. I think, personally, that Chet has a little bit higher of a ceiling, but I just don't think that the Magic are going to end up going with him at number one. So, Max, what are your thoughts on the number one pick?
By the way, guys, I'm Max from Zero on the Clock. So my opinion on this pick is I think that the Magic will take Jabari Smith number one. Personally, I would probably take Chet if I were the Orlando Magic, but I really see why that Jabari would go number one. I mean, he's a 6'10", 220-pound small forward with a 7'1" wingspan, very reminiscent of KD at times with his shot. Was a very efficient three-point shooter at Auburn. 42% from three was really good. And nearly half his shots were from three, so that's a really good sign to see that. I think he's going to end up being a really good defender in the NBA. I think more so his issue is scoring inside the arc. So at Auburn, he only shot 43.5% inside the arc. So he does need to work on, especially getting to the basket, being more aggressive and using his size, and being able to play through contact better is, I think, something that he needs to work on. And also just being more of an actual shot creator, because there was times at Auburn when he was just relying on his size to shoot over guys. And that's in college that works. But, when you get to the NBA, you're going to have to start creating your own space at times, because everybody in the NBA is tall. Everybody's athletic. So those are my personal opinions. I think he's a great player. I would probably just go Chet, but I think he will be number one pick.
Yeah, I feel you 100%. I mean, everyone who has listened to our show since the college basketball season knows how much I loved Auburn and loved Jabari. But I agree with you. You saw it a lot of times. He would just get the ball at 20 feet, not even dribble a couple jab steps and just shoot over someone. And like you said, that worked. But he's got to definitely create more off the dribble. And, I mean, he's so much longer than everyone, and he's athletic for his size. He really does need to improve that ability going to the basket and scoring at the rim, around the rim, floaters, all that stuff. I mean, he had some great takes where he would go up and finish strong, but he definitely needs to improve that, I think, especially with the matchups he's going to get in the NBA.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree
100%.
as well. I think that shot creation is definitely going to be one thing that's going to be key for him in the NBA. But I think with his length and his skill and, just being a guy that can be taken number one and, having so much potential. I think that he can easily work his game into being a great shot creator, and that's why I think that I'm not going to say he's going to be Kevin Durant 2.0, but I think he definitely has a good possibility of, being that just based on, his dribbling and just his ability. I mean, he can be an elite scorer in this league. So that's why I have him going number 1 as well.
Yeah, I agree. Max, I'm curious, why would you take Chet number 1? Because personally, I wouldn't. I'll get into that a little bit later, but I'm curious as to why you would take Chet.
So the obvious big concern with Chet is his frame, right? He's 195 pounds for being 7 feet tall. And I will say that is a little bit concerning. But we seem to forget that Evan Mobley came into the league only 20 pounds heavier than Chet Holmgren this year and was putting up amazing numbers all season. He was thought of as rookie of the year pretty much most of the season. And I think personally, if Chet can get up to that 215 range, 210, 215 range within his rookie year or year 2, I think he's going to be just as good as Evan Mobley, if not better, because he's a better shooter. He's a better playmaker. And I think he, at Gonzaga, honestly, I think he was a little limited in terms of showing off his offensive potential because he was playing alongside Drew Timme, who was an All-American center. I think he's also got great ball handling skills for a center. If you guys haven't watched, by the way, if no one's watched his highlight tapes by now, I mean, you definitely got to do that because he is like the full package. He's one of the best rim protectors in this draft. Can play some perimeter defense for being that size. He can pass really well, like I said, ball handle. He does everything. And that's why I really like him. And I think his upside is personally the highest in this draft. But yeah, the frame is a bit of a concern, and that's really the glaring issue. And also, too, Joey mentioned this to us yesterday, but his inability to share his medical records with teams is a little bit concerning as well. Hopefully he's kind of just doing that because he's confident that he's going to get drafted high anyway. And it's not actually, he's not hiding a huge medical concern. But barring any injury or medical concerns, I think he's the best player.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a big point to look into too, especially like he played the whole year at Gonzaga. Like he never got hurt, which is like very important, especially like you said, the main concern is his frame. Going off what you said as well, I think he is the best shot blocker in the draft. I know Walker Kessler blocked more shots this year at Auburn, but the way Chet, like his timing, especially his size, like he was always guarding the biggest guy on the floor, and he was still blocking shots, guys that are 50, 60 pounds heavier than him. So I think that's going to be a really important part of his game. I was super low on Chet coming into the draft. Like leading up, especially like through the college basketball season, I didn't think he really deserved to be the number 1 pick at all. But I mean, he does have that ceiling. I just think that, like comparing it to Jabari, I think it's gonna be a lot easier for Jabari to reach his ceiling than Chet. I think there's like a few more factors that are gonna go into it, especially like the teams they end up playing for. So that's my take on Chet, but. I think he's going to be good.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that 7'6" wingspan definitely helps him with all of that.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think that where he ends up is going to be very important too. But I do actually think the Thunder might be a good fit for him at the number 2 spot, which is where I think he'll go. Because I like Josh Giddey a lot as a playmaker, and Shai Gilgeous. And I think those are 2 guys that can get him the ball. And he's not competing with any big men on the Thunder necessarily for point production. Because at Gonzaga, he only averaged 8.8 shots per game, which is very low for a guy of his caliber. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, we can just like lead right into that. So Chet is minus 185 to go number 2. He's currently plus 350 to go number 1, which we'll get into that in a second with Paolo and all that movement. So he's minus 185 to go 2, plus 350 to go number 1, and he's plus 440 to go 3. I can honestly see Chet going anywhere 1 through 3. I wouldn't be surprised if he moves anywhere in those spots. But Joey, go ahead with your thoughts on Chet.
I'm personally high on Chet as well. I've been high on him since high school, and I could just tell from, the way that he dribbled, the way that he scored, how easy it was in high school that he was going to be a dominant player. And like Max said, I think that he was a lot held back at Gonzaga. I think he could have easily came in and averaged 20 a game, no problem, if Drew Timme wasn't there. Because like Max said, he only averaged about 8 shots a game, and on those 8 shots, he averaged 14 points. He also averaged 10 rebounds, 2 assists, which is really good. He also shot 61% from the field and 39% from 3, which is amazing. And to add on to that as well, his defense, we all know, he averaged 3.7 blocks a game, and he also averaged a steal. And that's doing that and only 2.7 fouls a game. So he's not even, getting into extreme foul trouble as well. And I think that's going to be extremely, good for him at the NBA level, just how great of a defender he is. And I think that his offensive game at the NBA level, especially going to the Thunder, like you said, Max, he can get a lot more shots. I think he's a guy that can come into the league and make a big impact right away. No problem.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have that ability to shoot over people, especially with how the NBA is. It's really positionless. So, if you get, a 6'7" Draymond Green on Chet, he's going to be able to go over him every time.
I'd say the only concern I have, though, is his ability in the post, because there was times at, in college when there wasn't too big of guys on him, but, they could body him up.
Yeah.
Because he's not, strong, and he's not, he's just too skinny. So I think that if he can end up getting that weight on, which I think, him going to the NBA and getting him on those meal plans and, the whole everything about it,
Right.
I think that he's going to end up being great, and I think he would fit perfectly with Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous over there on the Thunder.
Yeah, 100%. The Thunder scare me. We're all Pistons fans, so the Thunder scare me a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because they've got a really good young core coming
And they have
too.
so many picks
Yeah.
of so many young guys that they can get still.
Yeah, I love Lou Dort too. Lou Dort is a beast. They're good. We could save that for another time, but
Jalen Hort is going to be a dog in the league for a while too. That guy's so underrated.
Yeah.
I remember last year we had some bets, 15-plus boards at plus 700 that hit legit
Yeah.
at the end of the season. He was great.
Yeah, they got some dogs. And, even if those guys don't stick around, they're just, they've continuously developed good NBA players there. So I think that's a really good spot for Chet to go. All right, number 3 pick. This will, kind of tie everything together with the top 3. Number 3 pick, my personal number 3 on my board, and according to the odds, Paolo Banchero is minus 220 to go number 3. Interestingly enough, he's plus 550 to go number 2, but he's currently plus 240 to go number 1. So he has higher odds to go number 1 than number 2. To go number 4, he's plus 2,700, so I don't really think we have to talk about that. I think these guys are unanimous, 1, 2, 3, wherever you put them. But this line movement for the number 1 pick has been insane. I mean, what was he at? 2 days ago?
Paulo was
to go
plus
number 1.
800 to go number 1.
Yeah.
Literally yesterday morning when I checked. So.
And now he's plus 240 to go number 1.
That's wild.
So I think it's really clear that either Orlando wants him or he's going to Houston. OKC, it doesn't seem like they want him, especially with those odds, which is weird. It's really weird to me. The movement is crazy. But I personally think he's going number 3. Obviously, he had a great year. I think he was one of the more polished players from day one. I think he has the most league-ready body and skill set. I think he's going to make a really good impact early. I think he's going to be able to keep that up, but I think those guys are going to be able to pass him, Jabari, Chet, and once we get later in the year and then down the road in their careers. But Paolo just had a bag from game 1. I mean, I remember watching that Duke Gonzaga game. Was that Feast Week? That? Yeah. That November week, and Paolo was just balling. I mean, that game was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Chet played well in that game too, but Paolo has the most league-ready skill set and body, and I think he's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, I agree, and I can lead that right into my statement. I think that Paolo is definitely the most NBA-ready prospect in this draft. Last season, at the beginning of the year, I was extremely high on him. He was my number 1 guy. That was until a few weeks into the season when Jabari Smith Jr. came along, and I just fell in love with him because of how good he could score, how efficient he was from the three-point line, just how much of a leader he was. I think that was awesome to see. But, back to Paolo. Like I said, I think he's the most NBA-ready prospect. And I think that also I have him going number 3 to the Houston Rockets. And I think if he goes number 3, this is sort of a hot take, but not really. I think he will win Rookie of the Year if he goes to Houston. I feel like that's a perfect fit. He can go over there with Jalen Green. And I think he could be a guy that really could go in and average about like 16 to 20 a game if he wanted to. I mean, he's got everything in the bag that you could want. He's not like an amazing three-point shooter, but he's not terrible. I mean, he can hit it from three-point range if you need it. So I think Paolo is definitely – I'm not going to say definitely going to win Rookie of the Year, but I think that if he goes to the Rockets, it's a perfect fit. I think that, Kevin Porter Jr. is going to be able to dish him the ball. He's going to be a lob threat. He's going to be everything for them. And I think that he can even take over as the number 1 option if needed, late in the game, just because of how young they are. But, yeah, that's my thoughts on Paolo Banchero.
Yeah, I like everything that you guys had to say about him because I feel like he has the highest floor in this draft class. Like Theo said, like Joey said, with his size and athleticism, 40-inch vertical, and also being 6'10", 250. That's something that's God-given right there. There's nothing you could do to stop that. I actually have a hot take about Paolo. I think he actually is a better shot creator than Jabari Smith as of right now. I think he does a really good job of getting into the paint and finding his spots, especially around that free throw line. Good mid-range shot. He's not as nowhere near as good of a three-point shooter as Paolo or Chet. As Jabari or Chet, but he is very skilled in the low post. Very good at getting to the rim whenever he wants, and he's also a really good playmaker too. I feel like that's an underrated aspect of his game. The one thing that is a little bit concerning was his defensive effort at times, but it was just that. It was a lack of effort, and that's something that can be fixed up when you're in the NBA. And he has the size and the athleticism to be a great defender. It's just if he puts his mind to it, is he going to be a good defender? Which I think he will be.
That was my main point. Like when you were, that was what I was thinking. His effort was something that was his main concern, especially on offense, because like you said, he's a dog and he has that ability to get to his spot, back somebody down, get a layup, get a dunk. We saw those glimpses of him, but sometimes he would kind of disappear, and I'd be like, why is he not just going to work the entire game? I remember when Duke played State in the tournament. I'm like, this dude can score on Joey Hauser every possession. And he started doing it at the end of the game. That's why they won. But I'm curious to see if that dog comes out in him more once he gets into the league, because he's going to have good matchups and he's going to have the ability to kind of move people around even as a young guy. So I think that's a really interesting thing to look at with Paolo moving forward.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think for all three of these guys, I will say this. This is something that Luka Doncic said, is that the NBA is easy to score in, relatively easy to score in, and that's because of the court is wider, the three-point lines are longer, and there's more spacing. So that gives Paolo more opportunities, especially on a Houston team with Jalen Green and Kevin Porter, guys who can really shoot the ball from three. That gives him a lot of spacing to get to the paint and not have to worry about too much help defense from other teams. So that's something that I think Paulo's going to show that dog, like you said, when he gets to the NBA. Because at the college level, he already knew he was going to be a top pick. It was just a matter of, effort at the end of the day.
All right, so moving on to the number 4 pick. This is, I know these next couple picks are going to be a long discussion with all of us, especially since
being Pistons fans.
Yeah, since they're involved in it. So, according to the odds, Jaden Ivey is favored to go number 4 right now at minus 130. Ivy is plus 1,200 to go number 3. Like I said, I don't really think we need to talk about that much. Paolo, Chet, Jabari are going to go 1, 2, 3. Depending on what order, we don't know. But so Ivy's minus 130 to go number 4. He is plus 230 to go number 5. I personally love Jaden Ivey. Obviously, I know like we're all Big Ten guys too. I watched a ton of Purdue this year. He he to me, it's kind of like a crazy statement, but just his play style. He's John Morant,
Yeah,
but
he's electric.
But he's an inch taller and he's 25 pounds heavier.
Yeah,
Like
he's just as fast too.
yeah,
Pretty much like he's quick.
and I think that like a point that I've been making with just like talking with people about the draft, Ivy was able to get downhill and score at the rim, and he had probably the best front court in college basketball last year, taking up a ton of space down there.
Yep.
Now when you go to the NBA, like you said earlier, Max, when we were talking about Houston and just the NBA overall, there's so much space to operate, and we see it with Ja all the time. I mean, Ja is light. He's really light, and he's able to get into the paint, use a floater, and score all the time.
He's number 1 in the league in paint points.
Yeah.
So that just says something right there.
I think Ivy has the ability to be the best player in this draft. I really do. I'm very high on him. Obviously, I hope that he falls to number 5 so the Pistons can take him. We can get into trade discussion and all that too. But I love Jaden Ivey. I think he has a really, really high ceiling. I think he is league ready too in terms of like when we were talking about Paolo. I think his game is going to translate right away. He's got a solid three-point shot. His form is a little bit concerning, but I mean that doesn't really matter. If we saw it
He's
with
making it.
we saw it with Ja this year in the playoffs too. They were leaving him open, and he was hitting them. So he's just one of those guys. I feel like he has the ability. I mean, and he does have a better three-point shot than Ja, in my opinion. If you're going to play up on him, he's going to go right by you. And if you give him space, he has that ability to shoot it and create his own shot from the perimeter as well. So
Yeah.
I love Jaden Ivey. I hope he slips to 5 so the Pistons can take him. You guys go ahead.
Yeah, I can start next. So for the number 4th pick, I believe that the Sacramento Kings are going to end up picking Keegan Murray. And the reason for this, really there's 2 different options. So if you actually look at the FanDuel odds, right now for the number 4 pick, they have Jaden Ivey at -115 and Keegan Murray at +115. So those are 2 extremely close lines. And the reason I think this is because I think that if a team is going to trade up to number 4, let's say the Knicks, because today there was a rumor going around that they offered a couple first-round picks in exchange for the number 4th pick. And I think that if a team were going to trade up to number 4, it would definitely be to draft Jaden Ivey. So I think that if a team were to trade up, Jaden Ivey is going to number 4. But in this case, we have Sacramento keeping the pick. And from what I've seen, Sacramento's front office, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, they all just took Keegan Murray out to dinner because they are extremely high on him. And all this, is going on, and they haven't even said one word to Jaden Ivey. Haven't even had him come in for a workout. Haven't even spoke to him. The only 2 teams that Jaden Ivey has worked out for are the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. So I think that that's going to be the case at number 4, and I think that, if a team trades up, I feel like the Knicks would definitely be the team to trade up because they are one of the teams that are extremely high on Jaden Ivey. I know the Pistons are as well, but the Knicks are so high on him that they're willing to give away their future to draft this guy. And that's exactly why I think personally, I would pick him at number 4. I think the Kings I personally don't know what they're thinking. Maybe it's because they went guard the last 3 years and they messed up and had to trade Halliburton and stuff. But I just think that they'd be making the wrong decision personally with Keegan Murray. But just from the reports, I'm going to go Keegan Murray here.
Yeah. I mean, they're just a poverty franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the Lions of the NBA.
Really, they could go Dyson Daniels here. You never know with them.
They stink. They're just an awful franchise. Anyway, go ahead, Max.
So what are your thoughts, Max?
I agree and disagree with you, Joey. So I think that Keegan Murray will go number 4, but I think that it does make sense for the Kings to take him number 4.
I think so too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Though.
I think it's because and the thing is Jaden Ivey is a great player. He's amazing. But in terms of positional need, I think that the Kings need more of a guy a wing player who can play defense, who can shoot, a 3-and-D kind of guy like Keegan Murray. Because they have De'Aaron Fox, and they just drafted Davion Mitchell last year, who ended up becoming pretty good at the end of the season.
Yeah, he had a good year.
Yeah.
He did.
So I don't think they need a guard here, and honestly, I don't think it would make much sense for them to go with another guard. I think they should just keep building around De'Aaron Fox and keep getting solid players around him. And a guy who shoots 40% from three, Keegan Murray. We all watch Big Ten, like Theo said, and we saw Keegan Murray last year. We saw both Keegan Murray and Jaden Ivey, and I was equally impressed with both during the college basketball season last year. So Keegan Murray is going to be a great player. The only thing I will say is that his numbers were probably a little inflated because he was playing a center role, and he kind of, I guess, had that mismatch always of being guarded by the other team's five, and he's really not a true five. So he probably scored more than he should have. I don't think his skill set is as good as 24 points per game. I don't think it's going to translate as well into the NBA, but I think he could be a good, I could honestly think he could be like a Sadiq Bey kind of player for the Kings. I think he could be a great defender, has length, can shoot. I think that's what the Kings need at 4 personally.
I'll tell you this. I personally, when I see Keegan Murray, I see a little bit of Jeremy Grant. Like, he can score the ball. He can score very efficiently. I mean, he shot, what did he shoot from three this year? I don't have the
40%,
numbers.
39.8.
Yeah, he shot 40%, so he was great from three-point this year. And he shot a lot of three-pointers. He had that one game in the tournament where he went 8 for 10. So he's a guy that can make a ton of threes, if he gets his number called. But Keegan Murray is just he would be great defensively. He could guard personally 1 through 5. I think he can. I don't know if he's going to be guarding Giannis or Embiid right away, but if he can get some muscle on, I think he's got the defensive ability to guard him just because of how lengthy he is, how smart he is. He has one of the highest basketball IQs in this draft for sure. He's an extremely smart kid, and I just think he would fit well in the Kings as well.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Max. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think he reminds me a lot of Tobias Harris. Like, that was the guy I first thought of when I was watching Keegan. Just a guy who could shoot. He's tall for a wing, and yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, like, down the stretch at the end of when conference tournaments started, like that last stretch of Big Ten play and the conference tournaments. I mean, I know Iowa got bounced in the first round, but I thought he was the best player in the country. And like I said earlier, I loved Jabari. Like, Jabari was by far my favorite player. But Keegan Murray was just giving everybody work. It did not matter. Like you said, Max, like he did have a lot of bigs on him, so I mean he really had free reign. But he can score at all 3 levels. He can defend. I think his skill set is going to translate really wherever he ends up. I wouldn't mind if the Pistons took him. Like if Ivy goes 4. And then we take Murray at 5. I personally don't think we will, but I think Keegan Murray is going to be a really good player. I think something that's unique about this draft, and a lot of people are saying it's not that good of a draft. I really don't agree with that at all. I think there's a lot of guys who can be really solid players in the league and give teams good minutes right off the bat. But I think this draft is unique in terms of I think there's 10 guys who can legitimately win Rookie of the Year next year in terms of, like, their role on their team, where they end up, their skill set. I think there's a lot of factors, and that's what makes me excited for this draft is there's so many guys that are going to be able to contribute to a bunch of different roles all over the league. So that's my take for that. I mean, we can kind of do 4 and 5 together. So going to the number 5 pick, Keegan Murray is plus 135 to go number 5. The number 5 pick is obviously held by our Detroit Pistons. He's plus 135 to go number 5, but he's plus 125 to go number 4. Oh, well, he moved to plus 115. I mean, I put these odds up 20 minutes before we started recording, and it already moved down more towards him going number 4. So he's plus 115 to go number 4. They don't have odds for who's going to be number 6. But let's get into this as more of like a Pistons perspective, who do you guys want to see the Pistons take? Like, if we get our dream scenario, and then if Ivy goes number 4, I'm curious about that. One of you guys can start.
Yeah, I can start that. Personally, obviously, dream scenario is the Kings keep their pick. They take Keegan Murray at number 4. Jaden Ivey drops to number 5, and we win the Jaden Ivey sweepstakes.
Mm-hmm.
That's best case scenario. I think if that happens, honestly, I would personally not mind extending Jeremy Grant. I know a lot of people want him to be traded, but I still think he could be a great, have a great role on this team, and he's a leader as well. I think for him to work, though, he's going to have to definitely take a step down on the offensive end. He's going to have to, be more of like a 16 to 17 point per game player rather than like a, 22 point per game.
Mm-hmm.
I think now is where we have to, give the reins to Cade, have him run the team, and have him and Jaden Ivey in the backcourt. But if that doesn't happen, let's say that somebody comes up and trades up to number 4 and takes Jaden Ivey. I personally, based on yesterday, there was a report that came out about Ben Mathurin. Mm-hmm. And apparently Detroit's front office and coaching staff is said to be especially interested in Ben Mathurin's intriguing combination of current productivity and future upside, as well as his potential fit with Cade Cunningham. I haven't seen a ton of talk about Keegan Murray. I think that if he does fall to us, we could potentially draft him, but just based off of that, I think that Detroit really, really, really likes Benedict Mathurin. Mm-hmm. And I know in all of Troy Weaver's press conferences, he was talking about getting a guy that's going to fit. And them saying that they really like his character and things like that, I think Benedict Mathurin is going to be the pick at number 5 for the Pistons. And if that's the case, I think that the Pistons definitely should try and move on from Jeremy Grant, get a little bit of a package. Maybe, I seen a thing today that Max sent me. It was about the Hawks. They were apparently thinking about trading Bogdan Bogdanovic in the 16th pick for Jeremy Grant, which honestly for the Pistons, that would be a pretty solid get back for Jeremy. I think we could take a guy like E.J. Liddell or Tari Eason over there at number 16, and, we can run with that. But, that's my personal opinion on best and, all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think Jaden Ivey's he is the dream pick there at number 5. Theo, you hit it on the nail on the head earlier when you compared him to Ja, because I was taking notes on a Google Doc of all the prospects that I liked, and that was literally the comparison I gave him was Ja Morant. He's so explosive. He can get to the basket whenever. His first step is just so quick. No one can really defend that. And that's something that that's what makes Ja so unstoppable. And his development from his 3-point shot, I actually wasn't super high on Jaden Ivey heading into this last college basketball season. But that was only because of his 3-point shot. And he worked on that a lot. And he got up to 36%, which is good enough. And that's
10% better.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would be a great fit alongside of Cade Cunningham, who is great playing off ball as well. Jaden Ivey's not much of a playmaker, but there can be times where both can play off ball, and the other one can kind of just take over whenever necessary. Now, if we weren't going to get Jaden Ivey, I would actually want Keegan Murray at that point, but I don't think we would get him. Like Joey said, I think Benedict Mathurin would probably be the pick there. Based on kind of the reports that have been coming out and all these updated mock drafts with Benedict Mathurin going 5. I personally am not a huge fan of Benedict Mathurin at 5. I think he's a good player, but I don't think at number 5 we're getting as much bang for our buck as I'd like. I think he is a bit, spazzy at times. He's not a very good playmaker for a guard. His assist to turnover ratio is he averages more turnovers than assists. I'll just say that. And that's something that's a little bit concerning for me as a guard. He shoots a lot of threes. He's pretty efficient, but his jump shot is a little awkward. He's a solid defender, but I just feel like Keegan Murray would probably be the better pick there.
Yeah, fair. Personally, I agree with you guys both 100%. Nightmare scenario for me is if the Knicks trade up to number 4 and take Ivy.
Same nightmare.
I
would be sick to my
stomach. Oh my god. That'd be terrible. I don't want New York to take some away from us.
They don't deserve him.
They don't.
No, they don't at
Like,
all.
come
He
on.
wants to come here. Yeah, I agree with you. Dream scenario, we get Ivy at 5. But if Ivy goes at 4, wherever he goes, if someone trades up or if the Kings just take him, I think Ben Matherin's going to be the pick as well. It's a bit confusing, especially like with the line movement. But I mean, it looks like, especially the way it's been trending, Ben Matherin is plus 250 to go number 5. I think that's incredible value. That's something I'm gonna take personally.
I agree with that, though.
Yeah.
I think that's great value.
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna take personally. But I just think that Ben Matherin complements Cade a little bit more in terms of like Ben Matherin played the 2 at Arizona. He already has experience playing the 2. Jaden Ivey handled the ball a lot at Purdue, which concerns me a little bit because like a lot of his game is creating his shot, getting to the basket. I think Ben Matherin, even though his percentages are a little bit wacky, he took a ton of shots. And he's one of those guys who, when he gets hot, like, it's over. He's taking the game over. So I think he complements Cade a little bit more in terms of being a number 2 option. I think Ivy is better in terms of just a backcourt talent-wise, like, altogether. But I think he complements Cade a little bit more in the backcourt just because of his ability to move off the ball, to get his shot off the catch, off the dribble. I really like Ben Matherin. I liked him all year at Arizona. I loved Arizona all year. So personally, I think that would be the pick. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't mind if we took Keegan Murray because I think he's going to be good as well. But I think we're going guard. Yeah, so I think it's going to be Ben Matherin. I think either way, Troy Weaver is going to make the right pick. It kind of sucks that we slipped to 5 in the lottery.
Yeah,
like,
I wish we could have got top 3 and solidified one of the bigs. But
I know. Even if we had the number 4 pick, I'd feel so much better.
Yeah.
Like, us being at 5 really sucks.
I will say this, though. Being at 5 isn't absolutely terrible because we could end up coming out with a top 2 guard in the draft, even the best guard in the draft, which is great.
Yeah, that's facts.
And especially with the news breaking today that apparently DeAndre Ayton's preferred destinations are the Detroit Pistons or the Atlanta Hawks if he doesn't end up staying with the Suns. And personally, from everything that I've been seeing, I don't think that he's going to end up staying with the Suns. In Game 7, they ended up benching him and not even playing him the whole game because of internal issues. I think that raises, extreme, issues. I mean, that's just a big red flag, and I don't think the Suns are going to want to deal with that, and I think he's going to end up going to a new team. And, being able to get, the best guard in the draft and potentially being able to get DeAndre Ayton in free agency, that would definitely be the dream scenario for us as Detroit Pistons fans. And it's looking good as of right now. But, it just depends what the Suns want to do with DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ayton is – getting Ayton and Ivy is like the dream scenario for all of us, at least personally for me. Like, if we can make that happen somehow, I think that'll be great. I am concerned a little bit because it looks like it's going to be a sign and trade with Phoenix. It definitely will be. I'm concerned in terms of like what we're going to have to give up, what we're going to have to move. I don't know if we're going to be able to keep every single piece. Keep Jeremy, add him in there. Yeah, but if we can make the moves to get a solid guard, Ivy or Matherin, and then bring Ayton in to play with Cade, I think we're in great position to at least make the play-in next year. Like I think we're a top 10 team in the East with Cade, Matherin or Ivy, Sadiq, if we keep Bagley and Ayton. Like
I agree.
I think that's a playoff team, and I think that's a great core to build around. So hopefully we can make that happen.
Yeah, Ayton would be definitely a great piece to add. And one thing I want to say, the reason why I don't think he's going to return to the Suns is because he's got to realize by now that the Suns dynasty, the clock is ticking on that, because Chris Paul is only going to get older and older every year. He's not going to be around much longer. And when it's just him and Devin Booker, I mean, they're a good team, but they're not going to be a contending team, in my opinion. If he comes to the Pistons, he's coming to a team that will have a top 5 pick from this year, Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey. We'll see about Jeremy Grant, probably not, but we'll have a good young core to build around. And then also having Ayton down low would be perfect. And then Isaiah Stewart as a backup center would be amazing. So I think that would be a great pickup for us. I was hoping that we would get the number 1 pick this year, number 2 pick, and get Chet, but I think DeAndre Ayton is a great pickup. It just equally as good for us, honestly, at this point in the rebuild process.
Yeah, I think the Suns realize that. I think the Suns realize that there's probably 3 or 4 teams that are going to be better than them in the West next year. And, like, I don't know how much better Devin Booker can play than what he did last year. Like, the Grizzlies are going to be better than the Suns. The Warriors are obviously better than them. The Clippers are going to get Kawhi back. And,
I think the Nuggets are a sleeper team next
year. The Nuggets are probably going to be better than them as well. That's 4 teams that you can argue that are better than them,
right? Just
on paper. So, I think, even though it's a shame for them, they got to the finals and lost, and then they lost to the Mavs and just that crazy implosion in that Game 7. But it sucks for them. But I think if I'm a Phoenix Suns fan, you have to blow it up. Like, what else are you gonna do? I've said this forever with the Pistons, and it took us 8 years to do it, and now we finally did it and sucked, and now we're gonna be good again. Thank God.
Yes.
But I would much rather be contending and making our way to conference finals and NBA finals appearances than being the 8th seed for 5 or 6 years.
I agree.
Great. Getting swept every year, that's not that fun.
Right.
I would much rather be contending. So if I'm the Suns, I think you got to realize your potential is 3-4 seed, and all these other guys have better young cores. All those teams are going to get better. Denver, if they can get healthy, is going to be a tough team to beat. Obviously, Michael Porter Jr. is a big question mark for them always. But
Jamal Murray, getting him back is going to be huge.
Yeah, Jokic is back-to-back MVP. They're going to be really good. So if I'm the Suns, I personally move on from Ayton. I hope that they do. I hope that he comes here. But the Pistons really have a lot of opportunity to make some noise in this draft. Obviously, we've got Jeremy Grant, who's a big piece, a big trade asset for a lot of teams. I didn't really realize how much of an asset he is to other teams in the league. But I personally think I agree with, I think that was what you said, Joey. If we get Mathurin and don't get Ivy, I think we have to move Jeremy in the draft. Mm-hmm. And I have full confidence in Troy Weaver that he's going to do that.
Yeah, I think that moving on for Jeremy would definitely be good for us. If we drafted Ben Mathurin or didn't get Jaden Ivey in that sense. I think also another guy that's, very mysterious is going to be Shaedon Sharpe. Mm-hmm. I think he's a guy that, personally, I wouldn't even be mad if we took him number 5. I don't think that we would because we haven't really talked about him too much at all. But I think he's a guy that, could be a top 3 player in this draft when it's all said and done. His potential is through the roof. We just haven't seen much of him, and he's super young. He didn't even play at Kentucky last year. But, I think that's also another guy that we definitely could get at number 5. But, moving Jeremy I think would be huge because last year I remember there was one point that the Celtics offered us 3 first-round picks straight up for Jeremy Grant, and we didn't end up taking it. So that kind of had me thinking okay, so we really, really like Jeremy Grant. Mm-hmm. Troy Weaver drafted Jeremy Grant. Or no, he didn't draft him, but, over there in OKC.
He brought him there.
Yeah, he brought him over there in OKC, and he built a strong relationship with him over there and then brought him to the Pistons. And, the relationship is just very good. So that's why I feel like we could definitely keep him. But on the other side, the NBA is a business, so I feel like we definitely need to get some assets for him, especially if we're, not hitting the lottery and getting Jaden Ivey.
Mm-hmm. Now, does Portland have 7?
Yes.
Portland has 6.
Yes.
They're definitely
Pacers have 6
to get Jeremy.
Yeah, I would I would love, going off what you said, Joey, I would love to see if we don't get Ivy, moving Jeremy, getting number 7, and taking Shaden Sharp, because I think I
I think
agree.
Sharp is.
I agree wholeheartedly with what you said. I think he can. I think he can be the best guard in this draft.
For sure.
Like his ability, his his athleticism. Like obviously, there's a lot of question marks, and he is a risk. But if we don't end up getting that solid pick in Ivy, I'm down for the Pistons to take a little gamble on Shaden Sharp. I think that'd be a good move for us, especially picking up Matherin at 5.
Yeah, and I think another thing about Shaden Sharp is, if you think about it, he was supposed to be in next year's draft class, and he was going to be competing for that number 1 spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's probably end up going to be Victor. I don't know how to say his last name.
Mm-hmm.
Dude from France.
Wembanyama.
Yeah, he's extremely good. I think he's definitely going to be the number 1 pick next year. But Shaden Sharp probably would have been the number 2 pick. Next year, because he was the number 1 player in his class for next year. Ended up reclassifying, going to Kentucky a year early, didn't end up playing, and now he's in the NBA draft. So I don't know. I'm just in love with potential.
Yeah.
And him being so young and seeing what he can do, he just looks like a Zach LaVine or Bradley Beal. Like, his shot creation is very good.
Mm-hmm.
One thing about him is that, sometimes he makes the wrong reads passing-wise, or he can dribble too much or yuck up a really deep three-pointer for no reason. But, I mean, the highlights that we saw was all in AAU, where they really don't, think about defense too much. They're just trying to score and show their potential. So, I don't know. I just think Shaden Sharp, personally, I think he could even be the number 1 player in this draft when it's all said and done, but I'll just put him at top 3.
Yeah. I think a guy like Cade already garners a lot of respect too, which is really important when we're looking at drafting these one and done or even Shaden Sharp type guys. I mean, these guys are 19, and I know Cade is obviously still very young.
20.
But yeah, the way he carried himself this year, the way he carried this team, he wants to be a leader. He wants to be in Detroit. He wants to build this organization back up. I think a lot of people around the league respect him. I think a lot of the players, especially in this draft, played with or against Cade, in that AAU high school circuit. So, getting a guy like Shaden Sharp to complement Cade in a backcourt or even in a 3 position, because he's 6'7" too.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean,
exactly. Mm-hmm.
He can play the 3. We can move Sadiq to the 4. There's so many things that are gonna continually move in terms of the NBA. We see it already. Draymond played the 5 in the finals this year, and he's arguably 6'7". He's 6'6".
6'6".
There's just so much potential for the Pistons with these picks.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
but
it
also nerve-wracking. So.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know it's not a perfect world, and it's going to be tough. And something's going to happen that we don't want to happen, I feel like. But as long as New York doesn't trade up to 4 and take Ivy, I'm fine.
Hey, Max, I'm actually curious on your thoughts on Shaden Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Shaden Sharp, like you guys said it, you guys explained him very well. He has a lot of potential. But he also does have that risk factor of not having played in the G League or at college last year. So we don't really have any good highlights to go off of. All we got is AAU and high school ball. So it's a little difficult to really assess him right now and how he's going to transition into the NBA this year. I think eventually he's going to be a good player. I just think he's going to have the learning curve for him is going to be definitely steeper than most players, just because he missed a whole year of organized basketball, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we took Keegan Murray 5, which I think is a safe pick, and we traded Jeremy for the 7th pick, I would be happy taking Shaden Sharp, because then we kind of balance out a risky pick with a safer pick, which I wouldn't mind.
I would love.
However, I'm going to bring in another name into the discussion, which hasn't really been talked about in most mock drafts as being number 7, but is a guy that I think might be a safer option than Shaden Sharp, but can also do a lot of what Shaden Sharp can do. And that's Malachi Brand out of Ohio State. I am so high on Malachi Brand. He is one of the best shot creators in this draft. I actually think I told Joey this yesterday. I think he was a better all-around offensive player last year in college basketball than Jabari Smith. And that's because he was the most accurate, or one of the most accurate mid-range shooters in college basketball. He shot over 50% from the field as a guard, and he shot 41.6% from three, all as a guard,
freshman.
and as the number 2 option behind EJ Liddell. So he couldn't really, maximize his scoring potential too much. But putting up those kind of numbers as a freshman, that's something that's really rare. And I think that he's going to take that efficiency into the NBA, and having that mid-range shot, like that deadly of a mid-range shot so early in his career, is something that's like scary. And I think personally, he reminds me a lot of Devin Booker, being able to find his spots and knock down any shot on the court. I will say he's not as athletically gifted as Shaedon Sharpe. So, obviously Shaedon Sharpe has like almost a 50-inch vertical, according to some reports. So you can't compete with that. But to be fair, Devin Booker's not jumping, 50 inches to dunk the ball. But he's somebody that I would take in a heartbeat on my team. So it's a potential option. I don't think he's not gonna go number 7, but that's a guy that I would, if I was the GM of the Trailblazers, that I would personally think about a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I mean, he was a dog all year. Like, the way that he played, he did not look like a freshman at all. Like, from the first game, he did not look like a freshman. Like, he was always playing at his own pace. He was getting to his spots, creating his shots. I think, like, personally for us, well, I'll just speak for myself. He's everything that I wish Max Christie was last year. I think you guys can talk about Caleb a bit as well.
Yeah.
Like, he was just a dog from day one. And when we got into Big Ten play, he was cooking teams every single night. Like, it was easy for him. I think he has a ton of potential. I would love, like, I know we were talking about Atlanta at 16. If we made a move to take that pick with Jeremy, if he falls that low and he's still there, I think that'd be a home run pick. Like, anywhere 12, 13 or under, if we can pick him up, I think that'd be great for us. And I think he's got a ton of potential.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so
100% agree with that.
Yeah, my thoughts on Malachi Brand is I didn't know much about him up until the Ohio State-Michigan game. Me and Max ended up going to Ann Arbor, and we attended that game, and I remember seeing Malachi Brand just, like, smacking everything he was shooting. And I was like, I kind of just asked Max, like, who is he? And he told me about him. Told me he was a freshman out, and I was in awe, too. Like, he just doesn't play like he's a freshman.
No,
like,
not at all.
He seems like he's been around for a while, and that just shows his poise and, just how he carries himself, and I think that's great for the NBA as well. But one game that I want to talk about that I think shows his potential for sure, especially being a freshman, is in the game that they versed Villanova. They ended up losing by 10 in the not the national championship, in the tournament. But in that game, he shot 53% from the field. He had 23 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds versus a great Villanova defense. And doing that as a freshman, carrying Ohio State like that, trying to, get the win, even EJ Liddell, he outplayed him that game. I just think Malachi Brand, he has what it takes to, be that guy. And personally, I have him going like number 12, I believe. We'll end up getting to that. But I think he's a guy that at 7, that's not too far of a stretch to get him, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's a dog, and that's against the most experienced team in college basketball last year, and he was a freshman doing that. So the Pistons have a lot of potential for the Pistons. So we can move on. Now we are at 6.
Pacers, yep.
Right, 6. The Pacers. So I had Ivy going 5, obviously. Number 6, if he's still there, depending on what happens, I think the Pacers go with Ben Mathurin. Who do you guys have?
I've had Ben Mathurin as well, going number 6 to the Pacers. I know they're high in him. I know they've had him in for workouts. I know he performed very well in those workouts. Actually, all of his workouts, he's performed very well.
Yeah,
That's why he's rising up the draft boards so much. I think that would be a great pick for them at number 6. Who did you have, Max?
I have Dyson Daniels going 6 mainly because of the reports about Brogdon being potentially traded. and that's their point
Yeah.
guard.
I've seen that.
Dyson Daniels could be that point guard replacement for him. And actually, his odds to go, I think it was his over/under was set at 7.5 for his draft
Yeah.
position on FanDuel. The under looks like a pretty solid pick right now because it looks like the Pacers are very interested in a potential point guard if they get rid of Brogdon. So we'll see what happens. But I'm assuming, if they get rid of Brogdon, then they're definitely going to take Dyson Daniels.
Yeah, and all that Indiana talk is like it can change the whole landscape of this draft because I saw, like, I didn't see much about it, but I saw like the Knicks are involved with trying to get Brogdon. Like, God, I hate that New York is in all the
Me
discussions,
too.
but
Man, at least it's not the Lakers.
yeah, facts. But Dyson Daniels is a good player. I haven't seen that much of him. I mean, I have been watching like a little bit of film recently, but that's all draft film. Like it's all their highlights anyway. Like all those. I'm not gonna act like I know how he plays on a game to game basis. Like all these other guys, I watched almost every single game that they played in this year. Dyson Daniels, I didn't see a lot of. I know he's got a good skill set. I know he's big. I know he can defend. But I mean, outside of that. You guys can speak on him more if you know a little bit about him.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit on Dyson Daniels. He's a guy that in the G League Ignite last year, he played for the G League Ignite. So he played with guys like Scoot Henderson and Beauchamp. He's also very good. He's going to be in this draft. But yeah, he ended up taking over that team, and I'm not going to say taking over, but he did average 11 points, 6 rebounds, and about 5 assists on the Ignite. And also, he was a great defender. I don't know his defense stats off the top of my head, but that's
1.9 steals.
Yeah, 1.9
1.9
steals.
blocks? 0.7 blocks.
Yeah, 0.7 blocks. So that's personally where I have most of his value at is on the defensive end. He's an extremely good defender, and he also said that he's close to 6'8" with no shoes. He measured at 6'7" or 6'7" and 3/4 at the combine with no shoes, which is extremely tall. And being a point guard, I think that's obviously very well. One thing about him that scares me a lot is he was very efficient field goal percentage wise. I want to say he was 53% from the field or something, and he was 30% from the 3-point line, which is a little bit concerning, but the reason that I don't think that he will be able to develop a three-pointer is because his free throw percentage is hovering at a whopping 53%. And having a point guard, a guard in general, shooting from the line in the 50s is just not good. And that just scares me a little too much on his upside on the offensive end in the league. But I think, personally, I have him going number 8. To the Pelicans. I think he would be a great fit. He wouldn't have to do too much on offense, and he can just come in and be a defensive guy like he is right now.
Yeah, Joey. So Dyson Daniels, he definitely has a concerning three-point shot. I actually pulled up his free throw percentage. It was like around 74%. But the thing is, he shot 25.5% from three last year, which is pretty concerning. That's a really low rate. Considering he played like 31 minutes a game, so he was getting a lot of play time and shooting really bad. And he also shot like 45% from the field, which is good, but the three-pointer is definitely concerning. But he reminds me a lot of like a Josh Giddey kind of guy who's a good playmaker, has a lot of length, but he's a better defender than Josh Giddey, so could potentially be better on that side of the ball. Josh Giddey, I think, will be a better scorer when it's all said and done, but Dyson Daniels he's a very, very solid prospect, and I think he will be a very good fit for the Pacers if they were to pick him up.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to 7. Who has the 7th pick? Sorry, I don't have the team.
The Portland Trailblazers.
Oh yeah, Portland has 7. I don't know if Portland's gonna keep 7. I really don't.
Yeah, I personally don't think they will.
Yeah, I think they're gonna move it. Yeah. I don't know to who. But just in terms of like prospects wise, I have Shaedon Sharpe going 7. That's who I have. I mean,
I did as well.
Yeah,
so.
We spoke on him a good amount, so I don't really have anything else to dive into with him.
Yeah, that's who I have going 7 too.
Yeah, so we all agree on that. I think if they do keep the pick, they will go him at 7. I know they're high on him. So
Yeah. Okay, moving on to number 8. I had Dyson Daniels. I know you had
me,
Dyson at 8,
and
right?
we talked about him.
Yeah. Max, who did you have at 8?
So number 8, I'm actually going to go with Jeremy Sohan out of
Mm-hmm.
Baylor. He's a guy I'm really high on. He is an elite defensive player, and I think he fits exactly the scheme that the Pelicans want to run, which is like having Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum and surrounding them with really good defenders to kind of make up for their lack of defense. And I think that kind of showed in the playoffs and in the play-in by being able to sneak 2 games from the Suns and actually, doing really well in the play-in. A guy he reminds me a lot of is Herb Jones, who they just got last year in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So he's essentially like a power forward who can legitimately guard 1 through 5.
Yeah.
He has, I believe it was a 7-foot wingspan. So he's got a lot of length. He's an underrated shot creator, actually. He only averaged like 9 points a game for Baylor, but he has a pretty good mid-range shot, which is an underrated aspect of his game. So I have seen potential comparisons online of him being like a Pascal Siakam kind of guy. I don't personally see it, but like he could develop into a better offensive player than Herb Jones. So I just think with that defensive potential and with what the Pelicans are trying to do there, with the identity that they're trying to create, I think it's a great pickup for them.
Yeah, I agree. I watched a ton of Baylor this year. I loved Baylor all year. And I agree with you 100%. It's kind of interesting to see, like, the draft in terms of guys who can legitimately defend 1 through 5. It makes their draft stock go this high. I mean, like, in terms of guys in college basketball last year, I don't think Sohan's, like, top 25 of who I would have. But in terms of the NBA, the way he can defend, the Siakam thing is a little bit of a stretch. I agree with you, Max, that I don't see that as much. But he does have a good, like, 10 to 15 footer. He worked a lot on the baseline, like one dribble up to the rim. Like, he can finish. He was okay at the free throw line, not great. I think he was one of the guys that was really low from the free throw line, like if I remember correctly.
Yeah, like 50-something percent.
Yeah, something in there. Not great, but for the fit, I think that's a good pick. I think that's a good pick in terms of that team. So,
and while we're on the topic of Jeremy Sohan, I think that this is a great opportunity to give our first play. And personally, I think that he is gaining a lot of steam to go top 10. And right now, if you look on FanDuel Sportsbook, he's actually plus 150 to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And I think that's great value. I think that's going to end up changing by the time the draft comes. He's gaining a lot of steam. There's always guys that end up moving into the top 10 that weren't supposed to go there. For example, Patrick Williams a couple years ago. There's always just guys that jump in, and I think he could definitely be one of those guys that jumps in. And
Primo
plus
last
150
year.
is great value for him. So I think that, if you think that he's going to go top 10,
I like that. I'm gonna ride that with you for sure.
I like that a lot.
I think that's great value because I think he can go anywhere in this top 10. Anything else, or we can move on to 9.
Move on to number 9.
Number 9 is San Antonio. I think Jalen Duren is going to go number 9. I think that's a great bet. I don't know what he is to go top 10.
He's minus 105 last time I checked.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic bet for him to go 10 or top 10 because I really think he's going number 9 to San Antonio.
I agree.
I think he fits well with DeJounte Murray and what they have going there. They really do need a solid big. I think he has a ton of upside in terms of a big in the NBA. He's athletic, especially for his size. He can rebound. He can block shots. He does concern me a little bit. Literally anyone from Memphis concerns me just of how much of a roller coaster that team was all year.
Yeah.
But I think going to the Spurs is a great system for him to go to, especially after being in that college system.
Yeah.
But I like Jalen at 9 for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you on that. I have Jalen Duren going number 9 to the San Antonio Spurs as well. I think they need a big man, and Jalen Duren's just a guy that you really can't pass up on. I mean, before this year, he was actually projected to go top 5.
Yeah.
And He's an extremely good player. This year he was 60% from the field, while he averaged 12 rebounds, 8.1 boards, 1.3 assists, 2.1 blocks, and a steal a game. That's very good. He's an extremely good defensive player. He's also 6'11", and he's massive. He's 250.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at his physical structure, he is pure muscle.
Yeah, he's
huge. He can dunk on anybody in the league, and I'm confident he could be a guy that, when he, develops, he can easily bang with Giannis down low and Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take a little bit of work. He's very raw. But another thing that concerns me too is that doesn't really try and shoot the ball at all.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't make a 3-pointer last year, and that's not really his strength. He doesn't really shoot the ball, and that could end up hurting him. But going into the Spurs system and having Coach Pop as your coach, I think they would be able to lead him in the right direction and develop him the right way. So I think that would be a perfect fit for him, and him having DeJounte Murray having a lob threat would be huge for their team going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you guys both. I'm going to go with Jalen Duren to the Spurs. I would actually have it different. Like if Jeremy Sohan, if I didn't have him going 8, I would have him going 9. But
Okay.
I'm actually really high on Jakob Poeltl on the Spurs, their center, their current center. He was actually really good for them last year. Very underrated, very under the radar kind of guy. But I do think, Duren obviously has more potential than him. So it's like, how could you pass up that kind of player at number 9? The one thing that you guys both touched on is that he's not really much of a shooter, but he has a nice mid-range shot, for a big man. And he reminds me a lot of DeAndre Ayton, actually, with his mid-range shot, where he's got that nice touch to him. Although most of his work comes on the low block in the post, and he's just very dominant. Great rebounder, great rim protector, 7'5" wingspan. Nothing much more I need to say about him.
Yeah, I mean, with his athleticism and like you said, Joey, with his structure, he could easily put on 20 pounds and still be that athletic, muscular-wise. He's got a lot of potential, and we saw it this year, even though the NBA is moving towards that 4 guards and a big, if you can find that really solid big, it's going to help you a ton. Robert Williams is a guy that I love. He's unbelievable. In his role, he's the best player on the Celtics, in my opinion. I'm not saying he's the best player, but in terms of his role,
I agree with you.
I think he plays his role the best out of anyone on that team. If you can find a guy like that, I don't think that Duren is. He can get to that level. I don't know if he's.
That's a great comparison because that's who I was thinking as well.
Yeah,
is Robert Williams.
If it just comes down to, especially once you get on a good team, a team that's going to make a run, everyone's got to play their role. And if he buys into the role of being a rebounder, being a shot blocker, controlling the paint, affecting shots from guards, I think he can be a really, really good player. And I just think it's hard for the Spurs to pass up on him just because of they've hit with guards recently in the draft. Primo is still, I don't even think he's 20 yet, and he had a good year. What's his name? Really good.
Vassell.
Vassell.
Yeah, him.
Yep, Devin Vassell.
He's a lights out 3-point shooter. They've got a good backcourt setup. I think adding Duren, even though Poeltl is good, I agree with you. I think they can make some noise for sure.
100%.
Moving on to 10, which is New York.
It's the Wizards.
Is it? Oh yeah. 11's New York, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
New York.
So 10 is Washington. I personally have AJ Griffin going to Washington. There's a lot of mock drafts and other drafts that like Johnny Davis here. I just think AJ Griffin personally has a higher ceiling. I think he's going to be better in the NBA than Johnny Davis. AJ Griffin is a guy who can really defend when he wants to. He can really, really shoot it. I mean, we saw it all year. When he gets hot, he really has the ability to be a 40+% 3-point shooter in the league. He's going to have a lot of space to work. He can create his own shot. Not as much as maybe Johnny Davis, but I personally have AJ Griffin going 10 to Washington.
Yeah. For me at number 10, I have Johnny Davis going. And personally, it's really not a great fit. I think that him and Bradley Beal wouldn't really mesh because both of them aren't really, great passers. Bradley Beal, he's developed his game, but he's more of a scorer. But I think I'm just going to go Johnny Davis right now because I think he's probably the best player available at this point. But personally, I'm saying that on an NBA, just what I think NBA GMs think. But personally, I'm really high on AJ Griffin, and the only reason that he fell in my mock draft to number 11 is because he's had these injuries that are affecting him a lot with these NBA teams, and they're getting scared to draft him. But I think his potential-wise, he's a guy that could be top 5 in this draft. He's only 18 years old, and last year he averaged about 10 points a game on a stacked Duke team. And he shot 45% from 3. And if you look at his game from college, like from high school to college, you would see two totally different players. When he was in high school, he was getting 30 to 35 points a game. I mean, he was dunking on everybody, shooting it from deep. I'm not going to say he was held back at Duke, but I think if he stayed another year and played with the team next year, he could be that lead guy and could average close to 20 points a game, in my opinion. He's extremely athletic and long, and not extremely athletic. I mean, he's pretty athletic, but not like a Jaden Ivey or anything. But he's just an extremely good 3-point shooter. One area that I'm kind of questionable about is his defense because of his injuries to his ankles and things like that. We'll see how he'll be able to move at the NBA level, but I think the sky's the limit for AJ Griffin.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to say, AJ Griffin goes 10 for me. Great. Like you said, Joey, he is a completely different player from high school to now, or when he was at Duke. But that was mainly because obviously at Duke, he had so much other talent surrounding him, including Paulo, Wendell Moore, Mark Williams. There were so many guys there at Duke. But he was still very efficient while he was at Duke. I mean, he shot 49% from the field, 45% from 3, 80% from the line. Those are great numbers. And he actually had a 40-inch vertical when he tested for Duke. I think he may have had a higher than Paulo vertical. So he's actually sneakily very athletic.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's also got a 7-foot wingspan for being 6'6". So he's got like the perfect build to be like a 3-and-D guy in the NBA.
Yeah, 100%.
I see a lot of.
He reminds me of. Yeah. I see that too, and I also see Bogdanovich. Bogdanovich, where Bogdanovich is kind of more of a 3-point guy, but he can score at all 3 levels if necessary. And I think that's kind of how AJ Griffin is. And I think that's something that Washington needs is a guy like AJ Griffin. Because you never know how much more of Bradley Beal you really have in Washington. So getting a guy who has this kind of scoring potential, I think, is a great pickup for them at 10.
Yeah, 100%. Number 11 is New York. I have Johnny Davis going 11. We spoke on Johnny Davis a little bit, but I mean, the jump that he made from his freshman year to his sophomore year at Wisconsin was extremely impressive. I mean,
just as impressive as Jaden Ivey, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he really carried that team. Just was one of the best players in the country all year. The way that he scored, I mean, at all 3 levels, from 3, dribble pull-ups, posting people up. I mean, he was just really, really impressive all year. I think he can be a really good player. If he gets taken at 11 to New York, he kind of feels like a guy that they're just going to hate at first. I mean, because they hate everyone. They don't like anybody.
Well, they want Ivy, so if they don't get Ivy, they're riding.
Yeah. But I think he can be a really, really good player. I think he's going to need a little bit of time to adjust to the speed. I mean, like we kind of saw it in college. It took him a couple years to really find his game. He wasn't as high level ready as some of the other guys. But I mean, he really did step up his game. So I have him going 11. I just think he's the best available there.
Yeah, I personally had AJ Griffin going at number 11. I talked about him a lot in the last pick. So, Max, who did you have at 11?
I got Johnny Davis at 11.
Yeah.
But I will say I'm not super high on Johnny Davis. I don't really like him as a prospect.
Me
he doesn't.
neither.
I agree.
Yeah, he's kind of just to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're settling for him at that point. He kind of reminds me of Kevin Knox. So shout out to all Knicks fans. You're getting Kevin Knox 2.0.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. He's probably going to be better than Kevin Knox, but he wasn't very efficient last year at Wisconsin. He wasn't a great three-point shooter. There wasn't anything about his game that really wowed me. He was just, physically gifted and athletic and was able to get to the basket, and also drew a lot of fouls because of how physical he was. So that's where a lot of his point production came from. He had one of the highest free throw rates in all of college basketball last year. So I think that they're going to end up taking him at 11, but I don't love it personally if I'm a New York fan.
I agree. I personally might go Malachi Brand there if I'm the GM.
Maybe.
Just based off of my board because he hasn't been picked yet. Yeah, that's just me. But
or even a Baji. Like I would probably take a Baji over him.
Yeah,
I feel like Agbaji's he's been getting slept on a lot. Like,
I agree with that. Like looking at Mox, I was really, really surprised at where he was ending.
I remember he was supposed to be like top 10 for sure, and now he's slipping to even past the lottery in some drafts. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of potential there as well. But we'll get into that.
Okay, so moving on to number 12. Who has 12?
That
Thunder.
is the Thunder.
Oh, they have 12 too.
Yep.
Okay. I personally, this is going like against some mocks and where I've seen him going. I personally have Mark Williams going 12. I think he's gonna be the best player available at this point. I'm really, really high on Mark Williams. He had a fantastic tournament. I think he can be better than Jalen Duren for sure. Like in terms of his wingspan, his ability to impact things down low.
He's taller.
Yeah, wow.
Do you mind if I interject real quick? Because didn't you have Chet going number 2 to the Thunder? Would you have them taking 2 centers?
Yeah. I think Chet is just gonna like play wherever.
Fair. That's fair. Okay, sorry, my bad. I just wanted to get your opinion on that.
For sure.
Yeah, no, that's good. I feel you. That's a good that's a great observation. I just had him at 12. I kind of discounted the teams. Like I just kind of ranked them as best available. But I love Mark Williams. I think he can go this high. I think he can go even higher in the draft. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw him go like to San Antonio. I just think the way he impacts the game, he can really, really move. Like he can guard some of the guards in the league. He's going to be fine on switches. He has enough size and enough length to guard the really big Giannis's and Embiid's in the league. So I have Mark Williams going 12. I don't really like that I had Chet. That's a good point. But
I'll be honest.
I think he's the 12th best player in the draft.
I'll be honest, though. Like, a team of Josh Giddey, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, let's say right now, Chet, and Mark Williams, that would be a really good squad right there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even picking Mark Williams while you're picking Chet as well, I'd say you can have your front court of the future potentially right there because the Thunder don't have, like, they have Darius Baisley and, some other guys like that, but these aren't guys that, like, are 100% going to be sticking around guys.
Right.
Like, the Thunder definitely want to draft some big men. So, yeah, I think that wouldn't be terrible. But personally, I had the Thunder taking Malachi Brand. I think that he's just too good of a talent to leave there. And I get that they have Josh Giddey and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but they don't really have, like, six-man right now. Like, they have, like, point guards like Theo Maledon and, what's his name from Virginia? Can't remember his name.
Ty Jerome.
Yeah, Ty Jerome. Yeah. Yep, Ty Jerome. But, yeah, they got guys like that, but bringing Malachi Brand in, he could be an instant impact next year off the bench. I mean, he can lead their bench unit if needed. He's just that good of a prospect, in my opinion, and we talked about him a lot before, so I'm not going to talk about him too much more, but
Yeah.
that's my reasoning why I have Malachi Brand going number 12
I
to
like
the Thunder.
that. I like that. All those guys, like outside of Shea, aren't really pure scorers as
Right.
well. Like in term, like Branham is. So I like that. I
Mhm.
think that's a good point.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. I think though that potentially we could see a riser here at the 12 spot, and I think Tari Eason would be a great fit for
Mm-hmm.
OKC Thunder. That's the other guy I'm very high on in this draft, and I think would be a very underrated pickup for any team at 12, whether the Thunder trade it or they keep it. He's a guy who can, just like Jeremy Sohan, can guard 1 through 5. He's even more disruptive though than Sohan in terms of forcing steals and getting blocks. So you're getting a guy who is just an absolute force on the defensive side, while also scoring 17 a game as the sixth man for LSU last year. And he only played, I believe it was 24 minutes a game. That's
Yeah.
nearly
Wow,
only
yeah.
half of a game.
Mm-hmm.
17 points.
His efficiency was crazy.
I bet on him a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he also great shot. I mean, it's a little awkward looking his 3-pointer, but he hits it at a very high rate for a player of his position who is honestly positionless.
Mm-hmm.
And the only knack I would say is that he's not much of a playmaker, but OKC at this point would already have guys who are capable playmakers. He doesn't need to be a playmaker. They just want him to get buckets and play defense, and I think that's exactly what they get with him. So
Yeah.
that's why I have going 12.
I like
Sure.
that as a riser. I really like that pick. Just really quick to defend my Chet and Mark Williams together. That kind of reminds me of Al Horford and Robert Williams a little bit. You got one guy who can like stretch it out, move, and then one guy who can really defend. So that's going to be an interesting pick. Moving on to 13, Charlotte has the 13th pick. I personally have Ochai Agbaji going 13. I think he's a good fit for Charlotte there, especially with all the Miles Bridges noise. I don't think he's going to get moved, but I think that he's a good pick there for the future in terms of I don't think Miles is going to stay there for the rest of his career. So getting like a 2-3-4 type player like Agbaji there to play with LaMelo and Terry Rozier is going to be good for them. So I love Agbaji, obviously national championship winner, one of the best players in college basketball all year. He's got freak athletic ability. He can really shoot it, score at all three levels. Like you said, I'm surprised he has fell this far and even
Right.
farther in a lot of other mocks. But I like Agbaji in this spot going to Charlotte.
Yeah, for me, I have the Hornets taking Jeremy Sohan. We talked about him earlier. He's a great defender. I think this would be a great pick for them because they lack defense. Like, they really don't have any just pure defender, especially, at the 3. They have Gordon Hayward right now, who's really just an offensive player. They have Terry Rozier, who doesn't really care about defense. LaMelo, who is he's a two-way player. He cares about defense. He plays defense. But they just really lack defense, and I think them drafting Jeremy Sohan can help them a ton. He's probably definitely one of, if not the best defender. I'm not going to say best defender with Chet and guys like that, but I'd say on-ball defender, just pure defender. He's one of the best defenders in this draft, and I think that would be a perfect pickup for the Hornets, especially seeing that they have guys like James Bucknight in the G League last year, who they picked in the lottery last year. He's going to end up, I think, next year coming to the team and being a great role off the bench as like maybe, a sixth man or seventh man, something like that. And I think he's going to end up putting some more points on the board for them. I don't know how great he's going to be defensively. I know he's a very good offensive player. So that's why I'm saying I think he'll, put some points up on the offensive end for them. So that's why I think that their backcourt with LaMelo and him in the future, I would say that's a pretty solid backcourt, depending how he can develop himself. And from what I've seen at UConn, I think he has high potential. I think he could be a great scorer in this league.
Yeah, he's a
and
dog.
yeah,
I love him a lot.
That's my opinion on who the Hornets are going to be taking.
Yeah, so I'm going to go a little different here. I'm going to go center for the Hornets, and I'm going to go Mark Williams out of Duke.
Okay.
I think that's a position of need for them, honestly, is a center, because Mason Plumlee is not going to be the guy for them in the future. And Montrezl Harrell just got arrested. So they kind of need a center. And I think Mark Williams is like the perfect guy for them, honestly. He's, in my opinion, he's very close to Chet in shot blocking. There's actually a statistic that Basketball Reference has where it's block percentage. So it's an estimate of the percentage of opponent 2-point field goal attempts blocked by the player while he was on the floor. Mark Williams was 11.4 and Chet's was 12.6. Let me just say, anything above a 10 for block percentage is absolutely like ridiculous. So he's going to be an elite rim protector for years to come. And he's also one of the best rebounders. Great lob threat. Isn't much of a shooter, but I think with everything else that he does, it's worth taking him there at 13.
Yeah, he's just one of those guys, like, if he plays his role, he can be one of the best players in his role in the league. And, this is not a measurable stat, but the way that he blocks shots is, like, I love. Like, every block that he has is aggressive, like, that he's swatting it. Like, he's not, like, lightly tapping the rock.
He's putting 10 rows up.
Yeah.
And, he actually, my comparison for him was Robert Williams. And Robert Williams, like, I told Joey this a while back, he reminds me so much of Ben Wallace just because of how small he is for a center, but how dominant of a defender and a rebounder he is. I think he's going to be a force in the league for years. And I think Mark Williams is just a taller version of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love Robert Williams too. I think he's a good comparison.
While we're talking about Robert, I actually have a little bit of a hot take to say about him. I think he is definitely going to be up there for Defensive Player of the Year next year. I think if he's not injured, he will win it. And the reason I think is because last year, even though Marcus Smart won Defensive Player of the Year, statistically, Robert Williams was by far the best defender on the team. Like, by far, wasn't even close. So that's why I think his potential-wise on the defensive end, he can easily be, first-team all-defender for the rest of his career if he, wanted. But he's just so special on the defensive end.
I got another hot take for you with Robert Williams. I think he's a better defender than Rudy Gobert because he can actually play perimeter defense.
Rudy Gobert is garbage. I don't want to get too deep into that, but I think he stinks. Yeah. He is trash.
Robert Williams can actually play perimeter defense, and that's what I think separates them because they're really both really good at rim protecting, which I'll give to Rudy Gobert. But I agree. I'm not a huge Rudy Gobert fan. I think he's a bit overrated by advanced analytic nerds. But, yeah.
I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's a hot take at all, Joey. I don't want to give anything away because you guys know we do a futures episode every year. But shout out Mihaly, too. I've been waiting since, like, January when the Celtics really turned it around. I've been waiting for the lines to come out. Robert Williams, Defensive Player of the Year next year. Whatever it's at, I'm taking it. I don't care what it's at.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, I think he's winning it.
I agree.
Yeah, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. Number 14 is Cleveland. I have Sohan at 14 here. We've talked about him enough. He's just a great defender. I think he would complement guys like Garland and Mobley. Like, teams would have a hard time scoring on them if they add Sohan. I think he can really play a good role for Cleveland. When you have a scorer like Garland, Mobley has the ability to score at all levels, honestly. You got Jared Allen there too, so scoring on them is going to be tough, and that's my pick at 14.
At 14, I'm going to have the Cleveland Cavaliers taking Ochai Agbaji. And I think this would be an extremely good pick for them. They would be getting lucky, to draft this guy at number 14 because he was supposed to be a top 10 pick. And even though he was supposed to be a top 10 pick before this year, he played extremely well. He averaged 18.8 points. He shot 40.9% from three. He was 47.5% from the field. And he also averaged a steal a game and 0.6 blocks a game. So he was there on the defensive end as well. He's about 6'6", 215. He's got the length. He's got the size. I don't think that the Cavaliers are going to be keeping Colin Sexton, so I think they're going to be moving on from him, and that's where I put Agbaji in his place, and I think he could be a great player for them in the future. I think he could fit perfectly next to Darius Garland, and yeah, I just think that it would be a perfect fit for them over in Cleveland.
That's a great pick.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go with Malachi Branham, but if it weren't Malachi Branham, I would go with Abaji. I think they would both be great fits for Cleveland because they can both play that three, which they drafted Okoro a couple years ago, but he's not really much of a scoring threat for them right now. Branham would be or Abaji, but I think I got Branham going here, so I already spoke a lot about him and how high I am on him. I think he has the potential to be in the race for Rookie of the Year, like right off the bat next year. We'll see, because his role in Cleveland would definitely be interesting to see how that plays out. Would he be the second option or the third option behind Mobley and Garland? I don't know. And Sexton too. So it'll be interesting, but I think that would be a great pick for them.
Yeah, I agree. And then last pick of the lottery, 15, is Charlotte again, right?
Yep, Charlotte again.
Charlotte again. I know I just had them taking Abaji, but I'm going to put Branham here. I just think once you get past 12, once you get past 10, really, you're going to draft best available. And I think if Branham's still there, he's the best player available. So, I mean, we spoke a lot on him. I don't really have to get into that, but that's who I have them.
Yeah, so who I had the Hornets taking at number 15 is Mark Williams. And personally, I think that if they got Sohan and Mark Williams, that would be an extremely great draft. One thing that obviously I said they lack is defense. And getting two extremely good defenders at their positions, especially Mark Williams, I mean, he's amazing. And Sohan is amazing just as well in his own way. But that would be great for them. They don't really need a scorer too much. They already have LaMelo. We'll see what happens with, Bridges, but I don't know if he's going to end up staying. That's why I kind of had them taking Sohan as well, is because he could maybe, fill his role over there, add a defender, and maybe LaMelo scores a lot more. We'll see what ends up happening there. But, yeah, I think it would be a great fit. Like Max said, they have Mason Plumlee right now, which he's definitely not the long-term option. And, yeah, that would be great for them to get Mark Williams and would be a great fit.
Yeah, I agree. And to round us out, I'm going to have Ochai Agbaji going 15 to the Hornets. I think it'd be a great 3-and-D player to have alongside of LaMelo. Like Theo said, especially if Miles were to leave this offseason or in the future. He's a great defender, great three-point shooter. It's really all you need to know about him. He's going to be a great 3-and-D player for years to come.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so that does it for the lottery. Let's get into some betting picks. All right, so now we're going to get into some betting picks. Joey, go ahead and start with your first one. We're just going to rattle off a bunch of random ones.
Yeah, so as I stated earlier in the podcast, I think a great one is Jeremy Sohan. He's plus 150 right now, which is actually up from what he was earlier today, which I think it's great value. It was great value earlier today at around, I think it was 135, and now it's up to plus 150, and he's gaining a lot of traction to be taken in the top 7, or not the top 7, in the top 10. So I think that would be a great pick. Another one would be probably AJ Griffin. The only reason that it scares me is because of the injury concerns. Personally, I have him as like a top 7 player in this draft. If it weren't for those injuries, I would have had him easily going to the Portland Trailblazers at number 7. So it really just depends how the teams are feeling. But he could potentially be a great lock as well. Right now, he's plus 185 to go in the top 10.
Yeah, I like that. I agree 100% with the Sohan top 10 pick. I'm going to be taking that. I'm also definitely going to take Jalen Duren to go top 10 at minus 105. I just think that's great value at even money, especially because Johnny Davis is minus 135 to go top 10. I think that Duren has just even better value, and he can go as high as 8 or 9. So
yeah, I agree.
I really like that value a lot. Another pick that I'm definitely going to I'm definitely going to take, just in terms of the value, is Ben Mathurin to go number 5 to the Pistons. It's plus 250. This is kind of like a personal pick because if we don't get Ivy, I'll be upset. But if we take Mathurin and I win some cash, I'll be all right with that. So, like we said earlier, I think we all said if we don't get Ivy at 5, Max here a little bit lower on him, but I think we take Ben at 5 if we don't get him. So I think plus 250 is great value. Ivy is plus 230 to go 5. So honestly, with the way things have been trending, even in the couple hours that we've been together, it really looks like Keegan is going to go 4. So Ivy to go 5 at plus 230 or Mathurin to go 5 at plus 250. I'm going to sprinkle on both of those because, I mean, you're getting good value. You're making profit either way if you put a unit on each of those. So Ivy at plus 230 to go 5 and Mathurin at plus 250 to go 5 are my 2 additional picks.
Yeah, so my picks are going to be like kind of go hand in hand with each other, complementary picks. So if you're confident that Keegan Murray is going to go 4, then I would take Keegan Murray at plus 125 to go 4. I think right now it's trending in the right direction. It looks like that's going to happen as long as the Kings keep their pick. And then at 5, if you were confident that Keegan Murray goes 4, then I would hammer Jaden Ivey going 5 because I think there's no way that the Pistons would let him slip past 5 at that point. So either I feel like obviously there's potential that you lose both of those, but there's also potential that you win, you split both, and then or you win both of them. So it's a little bit of a riskier bet if you're interested in that. But it's something that I might look into personally doing just because I'm personally confident that that's something that will probably happen. Or at least, the very least, Keegan Murray, I get the Keegan Murray pick right, and then I get my money there. So,
right. Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't see any scenario in which Jaden Ivey's there at 5 and we don't take him. I mean, if he is there at 5 and we don't take him,
then like I
don't even want to think about it.
I trust the Pistons front office like 1,000%, which is something that I have never been able to do as a fan.
Yeah,
and if they were to do that, like my trust would legit be back to almost like 0. Like, it would be very questionable.
I would be in shambles. I would be in shambles.
Very questionable. Because Jaden Ivey is a guy that on a lot of NBA GM's draft boards, he's actually number 1. So, if some teams were at number 1, if they didn't really need a big, Jaden Ivey would be the guy that would be going at number 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm extremely high on him. And if the Pistons were to do that, I would be extremely sad. But I guess I would just have to hope for the best.
Yeah, and I think a good tail option there, too, at the 5 spot is taking Ben Mathurin at plus 280. Just because, I mean, if we don't get Ivy, it looks like that's probably who we're going to get. So I would imagine heading into this draft that we're going to come out with either Mathurin or Ivy. So if you take both of them, then you're most likely going to win at least one of those. So,
yeah, 100%. One more bet I have. They haven't been up on books, at least today when I've looked, because all the movement has been insane. But they usually do like a correct order, like a 1, 2, 3 or a 1, 2, 3, 4 correct order bet. I really like Jabari, Chet, Paolo, 1, 2, 3. If they offer that, I think. I mean, that's going to be plus money, whatever it is. Obviously, like I said, they're not up right now. But Jabari, Chet, Paolo to go 1, 2, 3. If they offer that, I think that's. I personally think it's a lock. I'm scared of the Paolo movement, but those 3 to go in that order, and then you can sprinkle Jabari, Chet, Paolo, Ivy, and then Jabari, Chet, Paolo, Keegan. That'll add a little more value as well. I mean, those, like I said, especially the top 4, those will easily be above plus 200. So, I mean, you can sprinkle both of those and still make profit. So, that's going to do it for my picks. I don't know if you guys have more.
No, I don't have any other ones. The one that I was going to say was Keegan Murray at number 4 at plus money. I think that's great value. Being able to get a guy that's pretty much projected at this point to go number 4 with how high the Kings are on him. I think that's extremely good value. So I think as long as the Kings don't trade that number 4 pick, it's just stars are gonna align and Keegan Murray's going to end up going number 4.
Yeah, with the way that line's been moving too, I think it's like a good thing to hop on it now, because I would not be surprised if it gets to less than even money.
Yeah, I remember when I actually threw a bet on Keegan Murray going number 4 a couple days ago, and when I got it, it was at plus 270. So just in literally, actually, this was yesterday morning, actually. So it's only been, almost 2 days, and the lines are drastically moving. So, and also at that time, that's when Paulo was about plus 800 to go number 1, and now he's about plus 240. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting picks, but that's going to be mine. Max, you got any more?
Yeah, I mean, to kind of go with what Theo just said, if they have any draft day boosts that would have like Jabari, Chet, Paulo, 1, 2, 3, I would 100% take that all day long.
Yeah.
If they don't do that, maybe one alternative that I might think about doing, it's a bit of a risky move, but it's doing 3 straight bets, one on each pick, just because I'm so confident that that's probably going to be the order is 1, 2, 3. Obviously, it wouldn't be as good as, obviously getting plus odds on like a boost or something, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to confidence in the pick, and I think I would have a lot of confidence in that.
Yeah, 100%.
That's it for me.
Anything else?
I honestly have nothing else. No,
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, we went over everything. We went over picks. We went over positions. We went over different scenarios.
Every player.
This was a mega draft podcast.
Yeah, we dove deep into the Pistons and all that scenario too. Thank you guys for coming on again.
Yeah,
thank you guys for having me on yours.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Be sure to follow these guys on. Do you guys have socials?
Yeah, we have Instagram and Twitter right now. We're actually in the process of making a TikTok as well, so be on the lookout for that. We'll have our socials down below. So Max, if you want to say anything before.
I got nothing else, guys. Theo, thanks again for having us on.
It
was great talking ball, and hopefully some of our picks are right and we make some money on Thursday.
100%. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, TikTok at Pozios Picks. Also, be sure to follow us on Pickett. Shout out to Pickett. You guys know about Pickett already. If you sign up with Pickett, use our promo code Pozios Picks. You get a sign-up bonus. The draft's going to be very exciting. I can't wait. Hopefully the Pistons make some good moves, and the league's going to be interesting. Like I said, I think a lot of these rookies can have an impact, so it should be a good one. But that's going to do it. We appreciate you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah. Peace.
Peace.